Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Sheila and I'm an inner work coach, and I work with women who are finally ready to acknowledge and deal with the feminine mode that we all have. So if you're returning, welcome back, and if you're new, I am so grateful that you're here. This week I want to do a breakdown of the archetypes. Specifically the 12 archetypes as defined by Carl Jung. The word archetype gets used a lot. It gets overused a lot. So before we begin, I just want to clear up what an archetype is, what it isn't, and why it helps to know what they are. Okay? So I'll begin with what they're not. An archetype is not a personality. It's not a personality type. If you go online and you find a quiz that says find your archetype, and you take it and it sends you all this information on one, it's not a personality test. Archetypes are a pattern recognition tool. They help you understand yourself better. They help you understand other people better when you learn to recognize archetypes in them. And they help you acknowledge some of the parts of yourself you perhaps aren't a fan of, and learn how to integrate those parts into yourself, because they're running the show, whether you want to admit it or not. Okay? Archetypes are universal. They are found across all cultures, and they've been around for eras, so they're not new. They are everywhere. You will recognize them as we go through them, through characters in stories and in movies, as well as your real life. And that's done on purpose by writers and creators. There are 12 of them that we're going to focus on, and they fit into 4 categories. And those categories were created to look at how we orient towards ourselves, how we orient towards others, how we orient towards structure and freedom. Okay? What's missing from a lot of teaching is some skim over the shadow completely, and a lot don't ever address how they relate to the feminine mood. So we're going to do that here. Something to remember before we begin is these are not character flaws. Okay? They are aspects of you, and sometimes those aspects are challenging. Sometimes they can cause some issues for you, but it's not a character flaw. So I want you to keep that in mind as we go through them, so that you're not beating yourself up over things you hear that, might get your attention in a not so great way. Okay, so the first category we're going to look at is the ego archetypes. Now, these relate to how we know ourselves. Okay, so it's through the lens of us. They develop early. They are shaped by what it is safe to be. And it's often where our first wounds lie, and where they imprint on us, and where they stick. So the 3 that you're going to find here are the innocent, the orphan / every man, every person, and the hero. Okay? So let's take a look. The innocent. I promise you know one of these. I promise you've known many of these. You may have been one of these at some point, and you may be one now. The innocent is the eternal optimist. The naturally believes in the goodness of people, the goodness of everyone. There's good in everyone. They are naturally trusting. They are very, very warm, and that warmth is something that others are drawn to. Okay? So very innocent, very childlike, very optimistic, very hopeful people. The shadow side of this is they tend to be very naive, and not in a way that is great for them. Okay? They're also the people who tend to, when things get hard, they want to stick their head in the sand, cover their ears, go la la la, everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's fine. They're the it's fine people. They keep the peace by pretending that it's fine. And safety is maintained in their mind, consciously or not, through denial. It's fine. Everything's fine. It's okay. It's fine. Now, you can imagine this impacts relationships. And you can imagine this is directly related to the feminine wound. Because a woman who is an innocent archetype, who has that as a predominant character trait at this point in time, overtrusts in her relationships and underprotects herself. So she lacks self-preservation skills. She might not see a red flag at all. If she does, she's going to minimize it. She's going to pretend it's not there. She's going to make excuses for it. And she's going to deny it. Okay? So you can see how this can cause problems for her in her relationships. She will shrink herself to keep herself safe. So she will never ever outshine anybody if she thinks her safety is threatened. So she'll just let everyone else have all the glory, take credit for her stuff. That's what she does, because safety is her primary motivator. The orphan / every person. So these people are very down to earth. They're very grounded. They're very loyal. They value connection over achievement. Belonging is their kind of core thing that they chase. And they're genuinely relatable people. These are people who have had some trauma, but it wasn't the kind that sticks to you. And so they can relate to a lot of people. And you can see how that can make them great friends, great people to be around, but you can probably also start and see where that might cause some problems. So their shadow aspects are self-erasure to fit in. They are afraid to have an opinion. They are the chameleons of the world. So they are the people who walk into a room and they become the room. And when they go to a different room, they become that room. And they will say they believe what everyone else believes to keep the peace. And you can see how that can become problematic because you don't know who they are. You don't know what they stand for, and you don't know what they actually believe. So they're shapeshifters, and they are terrified that if people knew who they really were, or what they really thought, or what they really felt, or what they really believed, that they would want nothing to do with them. So there's a lot of fear there, and a lot of their overcompensation for belonging comes from that fear. In relationships, you can see where this is a problem, especially with the feminine wound. She is a steady presence in everyone's life that she knows, and she's often unseen. Her contributions go unacknowledged. She's invisible. She's a rock, and she's like the glue that holds things together, but she's invisible. People who love her may not know her. They may not know anything about her. They love the version of her that she presents, but they don't know her. And she's not sure if they would stay if they did know her. So she keeps a lot of herself kind of walled off. Okay? And the final one of the ego archetypes is the hero. Now, a hero will work within the framework of society. Okay? They are courageous. They act quickly. They have this quiet relentlessness to them. They want to do good. They rise up when things get hard. They have a strength that just doesn't quit. Okay, think first responders, think firefighters, think people in the community, working within those structures, doing good. Where this becomes a problem for them and creates challenges for them is when the hero becomes their identity. When they have to see themselves as the hero. When there is always a dragon to slay, and where they think that their worth, their sense of self-worth, is tied directly to their performance. So if they can't save somebody, or they can't get there in time, or something goes wrong, their sense of self-worth is in the toilet. Resting feels like failure. So they do burn out, and asking for help for themselves feels impossible. In a relationship, you can see where this can cause some problems. The feminine wound looks like her carrying more than her fair share in life and in relationships. It looks like her showing up for absolutely everyone. And no matter how much she delivers, no matter how much she gives and makes a difference and saves, she still feels empty. And she still feels like it's never enough. Okay? So those are the ego archetypes. The next one is the order archetypes. Order archetypes are based on how we create and hold structure. So those are your caregivers, your rulers, and your creators. Okay? So the caregiver, they really want to take care of you. They want to take care of everybody. Not in the way the hero does, because the hero does it based on their own perception of themselves. This is, the world will fall apart if I'm not taking care of everyone. A lot of helpers and healers fall into this one. So think of nurses, think of mothers, think of people whose literal title is caregiver. Okay, they are naturally attuned to others' needs and taking care of people. They're very nurturing. They genuinely gravitate towards people who are in need, and people are very responsive to that. And when she shows up, she means it. Okay? You can see where this becomes a problem. She often has a need to be needed. A need to be needed. And I'm stressing that because she will force sometimes her need to be needed on other people. So she's the overbearing caregiver. She is the overbearing parent. She is the overbearing step parent or in-law who, I'm going to do this and you don't have a choice. Okay? They do give until they're empty. And then they will continue to give more. And they think if they stop, it makes them selfish. Okay? Because they really do believe they're helping hold something together. Now, you can see in relationships where this is a problem. You can see where the feminine wound, this is a problem. Because if she's the one who's quietly holding everyone together and she's falling apart quietly on the inside, resentment builds. And very likely to become a martyr. Also very likely to begin using that love and that care as a currency. And when love and care becomes currency, it becomes almost like a bargaining chip. How bad do you want it? And then she starts to expect things in return that are not love. She will force love and care on people and demand some kind of response or some kind of recognition or acknowledgement in return. And it creates a lot of resentment in relationships. So that is a big one that you see with the feminine wound. Okay? The ruler. Oh, there's so much we can say about the ruler right now. In their healthy state, they are very responsible, very clear-headed, naturally authoritative. They lead from genuine care, and they lead by example. Okay? In their not ideal state, they become authoritative to the point of being like a dictator. They will use control as a fear response. They're the people who hold on so tightly that no one and nothing gets in. Okay? And they're afraid to rest in case everything falls apart around them, because they are convinced they are what is holding everything together. Okay? In relationships, you can see where this is going to be problematic. With the feminine wound, you can see where she's either going to be the victim of this or she's going to become this. And if she becomes it, she will be the leader who is completely competent but an island unto herself. And she will not accept help from anybody, and she will not let anyone tell her what to do or make suggestions. It's very her way or the highway. She believes that depending on others is a liability. And for her, her job is to do the holding, not being held. And so for her, that's a major, major problem. So you can see where that creates obstacles in her relationships and in her life, right? So that's the ruler. The final one is the creator. Creators are expressive, incredibly expressive and imaginative, and what they imagine must be created. And it's not a hobby, it's like breathing for them. Okay, they have to, whether it's writing or painting or dancing or singing or whatever expressive form they've chosen, they have to. And they are able to see what exists before it exists. It exists only in their mind, and they can bring it to life. And that's an incredible gift. Where it becomes a problem is when visibility feels dangerous for them, they will stop creating. And they will create in secret and then never share it or never finish. So there could be a million unfinished projects around her home and her work and her life because she's terrified to let anybody see them. She will dismantle her own work before anyone else can. So she will preemptively decide that this is crap, and she will rip it apart, mentally, and never share it because she has already decided someone else is going to. In relationships, this becomes a problem. Because while she's suppressing creation and she's not being who she is, it can come out in very big, very dramatic ways, right? Because expression has to be expressed. And when she's not choosing how to express it, it gets messy. Her creative self, she tries to keep her underground. But things don't stay underground, they bubble to the surface in other ways. She will keep that part of her hidden in every single relationship. She does not want people to know. And the moon has taught her that being seen invites loss. So she thinks if people see what she can do, they're either going to hurt her to the point that she has to leave them, or they're going to reject her. And that becomes kind of how she sees the world. The social archetypes. These are the ones that show how we connect and seek meaning together. Okay, so how we see ourselves in relation to others. This is the lover, the jester, and the sage. Okay, so the lover. These are the people who are passionate and sensual, and they will love somebody with their whole entire being. They love like wholeheartedly, and they are very moved by beauty in this world and by intimacy and closeness, and they're just, very touchy and very, very, I know you can see where this becomes a problem. In her shadow aspect, this is the person who will dissolve into their partner. This is the person who mistakes intensity for depth. So the relationships that are very dramatic and have a lot of fighting and a lot of really big feelings and big conflicts and then big makeup after, she thinks that's a deep relationship. And they often confuse fusion with intimacy. So they believe that if you spend all of your time with a person and kind of become that person, that's intimacy. And we know that's not. So in relationships, you can see how this goes bad real quick. From the feminine womb perspective, she is often looking for love anywhere she can get it. Because that becomes her measure of her self-worth. So she will overgive, she will under-ask, and she still feels empty just by giving absolutely everything. She often is great at giving and struggles to receive. Okay? The jester. I want to be careful with this one because I understand the value and need for dark humor, particularly with certain professions, or you won't survive. Totally get it. The jester, though, is the person who hides constantly behind a laugh. Okay? So they're playful, they're sharp, they're genuinely funny, they're usually very, very smart, very witty, and there's a lightness in them that draws people to them. Okay? Where this becomes problematic is when she laughs when she should cry, or she makes herself the target of the joke first. So it becomes, I know you're going to laugh about this, so I'm going to laugh about it first, and then you can't hurt me. Only if we chip away at ourselves enough, it becomes a problem, right? Who she is inside, genuinely, is kept carefully out of reach. So she keeps this wall around herself, hides behind humor, and is very careful who sees what part of her. In relationships, you can see where this becomes a problem. Humor has its place, but sometimes humor, upsets people. Everybody loves her, but almost nobody knows her. And that becomes a problem for both parties. The wound is that she's either too needy or too serious. And that will lead people to leave. So she avoids being needy and she avoids being serious. And in her mind, that means people will stay with her. Okay? The laugh stays, but she stays completely and totally shut off from other people. This sage is very wise, deeply reflective. She's a truth seeker. Will not settle for anything less than truth. Okay? That's the motivating factor. That's what drives her. She asks really good questions, and she will wait for people to ask her really good questions back. Where this becomes a problem is they tend to live in their mind and avoid the body. So they would rather think than feel. If an intense, heavy, awful feeling comes up, rather than process the feeling and let it move through them, they will try and think their way through it or out of it and just avoid the feeling altogether. And then they're repressing feelings. And there's all kinds of things, including health issues, that come from that, right? So this is where that becomes a problem. In relationships, it becomes a problem because she tends to keep people at a distance. You're starting to see a theme here, right? Because she doesn't feel. There's no vulnerability there. She blocks that. She can deal with people on an intellectual level, not on a feeling level. And she cannot let them see her be vulnerable. Another problem is she will offer insight when presence is needed. So she's the person who will give you advice and try and fix it if all you really needed was her to listen. And she knows a lot and she lets in very, very little. The final type of archetypes are the freedom archetypes. So this is how we move, change, and refuse to be contained. Okay, this is the explorer, the outlaw or rebel, and the magician. Now, the explorer. They're very curious, very self-directed. Freedom is not a preference for them, it's a requirement. And she discovers herself by moving around the world and through the world. That's how she finds herself. The shadow of this is staying feels like dying. She will move on before she gets hurt. And sometimes she's gone before she knows she's leaving. And sometimes she's gone before anybody else knew she was leaving. In relationships, you can see where flightiness is a problem. The feminine wound is, she'll bring a lot of aliveness, but she's going to struggle to stay. Very avoidant, very 1 foot in, but also 1 foot out. And the 1 foot that's out of the relationship or out the door is the one she's leaning on. So she's not leaning on staying, she's leaning on going. And she believes that intimacy and loss of self are the same thing. And it terrifies her because she would rather be alone than lose herself. The rebel or the outlaw. Now, we talked about the hero, and the hero is very egocentric and will work within the structures of society and within the law. The rebel or outlaw are the movers and shakers. They are fierce. They are questioning. They want to question every system. They will disrupt what needs disrupting. Okay, so they want to take down the systems. They don't want to work within the system. They want to bring it down. They have revolutionary courage, and when they are grounded, they are powerful and they are a force to be reckoned with in their shadow. Righteous anger becomes curdled into chronic rage, and they will be mad about everything, and they will fight with everybody about everything, and if there isn't a fight to be had, they will look for one. They will resist everything, including what is good for them. And they read all structure as a trap, not in the same way as the explorer. They think the structures of society itself is a trap. In a relationship, you can see where this becomes problematic. You can also see where the feminine wound can come into play, because she can feel like both a revolution and a storm all in one package, okay? She is so suspicious of love, she will test it until she finds the edge. So she will poke, looking for the holes in the relationship because she believes it's going to end. And she will not stop until she finds where its weak spot is. And then she can feel vindicated. See, there it is. Told you. Sometimes she will break what's not broken in a relationship. And sometimes she will destroy it just for the sake of destroying it. And you probably know a few people like that, right? The final one is the magician. The magician is visionary and intuitive and sees potential in things before it's real. They can seem to create something out of nothing and pull a lot of amazing things out of thin air. They are not afraid or uninformed when it comes to that in between when it's in here and when it's in the real world. Okay, that's kind of where their comfort zone is. This becomes a problem for them when they use transformation to avoid things like grief, or when they use it, it becomes a compulsion to fix things. It can become manipulative. They can use their abilities to deceive people, and sometimes they can't tell what is a doorway and what isn't a doorway, and they try and force something to be a doorway that was never meant to be a doorway. Okay, so these are people who will end a relationship and start a new one when they should have grieved the first one, and they will try and force a new relationship to avoid dealing with the first one. They will take a job they have no business taking just to prove that something that happened at a previous job shouldn't have happened, and they won't process their feelings. In relationships, you can see where this is a problem. From the feminine wound, you can see where it's a problem, because she's very powerful, but she's very elusive. She will take on others' transformations as her own personal projects. So the hero will go into a situation where someone is genuinely in trouble and try and save them in the real world. But they do look for people to save because their whole identity depends on it. Whereas the magician is drawn to people who are actually broken. She will seek them out, and she wants to fix them. And not for the same motivators as the hero, because she's trying to avoid that in herself. Okay, so she's trying to fix them instead of herself, is what it comes down to. And you can see where that becomes a major, major problem for her. So which archetype you are kind of portraying at any given time, or is activated at any given time, is usually brought to the surface by a wound. Something happens and it's now ready to say, hey, this is now a problem. You might want to fix this. You might want to deal with this. Very powerful for pattern recognition. Very powerful for helping you see yourself and others a little more clearly and without judgment. If you do the work in a way that is non-judgmental and curious, it will help you so much. If you use it as a tool of judgment and shame, and you start venturing into shadow work, it can destroy you. So tread lightly in the beginning, especially. They're not a verdict. Archetypes are not a judgment. They're not, you are this and this is all you're ever going to be. Like I said, they're not personality types. But they can show you a way back, in a way, oh, I do this and I probably need to look at that because it's hurting me and it's hurting other people. And then you start to find your way back into something healthier for yourself, right? And you no longer live from that wound. So that's all I have to say on the archetypes. And I know it's long, but there's 12 of them. And I wanted to make sure you really got a picture of what you're looking at. June is pretty much going to be spent looking at different tools that can help us see ourselves in the world through kind of a different lens than we're used to. And I hope you stick around for that. In the meantime, I hope this was helpful. There is a blog on this. I will drop the link below, and there's a chart on there in case you find charts helpful like I do. And I will see you again soon. Thank you so much for being here.